Good evening. I'd like to call our regular council meeting on Monday, April 14th to order at 6 p.m. Good evening to members of the public in attendance this evening, both here in the council chamber and to those who may be watching the live web stream, or to those who may be watching a recording of the meeting at a later date. Good evening to members of staff in attendance in the chamber, and good evening to colleagues. I'm Mayor McNeil-Smith. My colleagues at the meeting this evening are, to my far right, Councillor Duncan, Councillor Garnett, and to my left, Councillor Rintoul. Councillors Novick, Councillors O'Keefe, and Councillor Duck have other commitments, some of them unexpected, and are not able to attend this evening's meeting. I next want to move to territorial acknowledgement and want to respectfully acknowledge that we are holding our meeting this evening, but indeed the town of Sidney is in the territory of the Wasanich people, and we want to acknowledge the Sayote Nation, the Sartlip Nation, the Pakwachin Nation, the Sakem Nation, and the Malahat Nation, who have been stewards of these lands and waters for millennia. Millennia is thousands of years, and we're grateful for their stewardship of these lands. And we appreciate, as a government of the local government for the town of Sidney, that we need to work in a government-to-government basis with Wasanich nations to steward these lands for all of us living on the in Sidney and on the peninsula today. And for future generations. I'm next turning to public participation, where we provide an opportunity for members of the public to come forward and address council on any item on the agenda that they may wish.
Point of order, Mayor?
Yes?
Approval of the agenda?
Oh, why don't we start there? Or go there next. Thank you. So we don't have any changes to the agenda since it was published on Thursday afternoon. I would look for a motion to approve the agenda.
Raising two items. Do we need to do that now, or?
Sorry, if you have items to raise, please go ahead.
Yeah, 15.1 and 15.8, the first letter of 15.8. To correspondence. Okay, so for members of the public, we have what's referred to as a correspondence section on our agenda under number 14. Items of correspondence that are placed there are for some discussion from council. Council may or may not pass a motion on an item of correspondence. And then we often place several items of correspondence under what we call correspondence for information. So council does not normally discuss those, but a member of council is free at the beginning of a meeting to raise those items. So Councillor Garnett is requesting that we raise item 15.1. Which is a letter from L. Henderson regarding dog feces at Tallista Park Courts, and that will become item 14B under correspondence. Councillor Garnett, you had a second? The first letter in 15.8.
And recommending that the first of two letters regarding the Allbay Road parking concerns be raised, and that will become item 14C. And so I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
It's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. So we are now turning to public participation, and I began by saying that we welcome members of the public to come forward. We ask that you provide your name, the municipality that you reside in, and there is just a little button at the bottom of the microphone to make it live with a little red light. So for a first time, I'll ask if there's anyone wishing to come forward to speak to council this evening. Please come forward.
Is that right? There we go.
Perfect so far.
I'm Elizabeth Verwood, VERWOORD of 2516 Rothesay Avenue.
Please go ahead. You have 4 minutes.
Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Elizabeth Verwood, and I'm speaking on behalf of concerned residents of Rothesay neighborhood regarding the proposed fourplex development at 2525 Rothesay Avenue. While we understand that the provincial government has made a demand to increase density, we believe this particular proposal contradicts several core values of the city's OCP. Environmental protection concerns. This area serves as one of the few public access points to Sidney's waterfront and is part of a sensitive migratory bird corridor The OCP calls for preserving these areas from overdevelopment. The cumulative effect of light, noise, and human activity threatens both natural habitats and public enjoyment of the shoreline. Scale and neighborhood compatibility. Section 5.3.7 of the OCP supports gentle infill housing, but emphasizes that it must be sensitive to existing neighborhood character. The proposed structure, a large 3-story box-like fourplex with over 7,000 square feet of living space, plus garages, stands in stark contrast to nearby homes and violates the intent of avoiding massing. Policy 5.3.7.3 specifically requires infill housing to demonstrate compatibility in height, massing, and placement with adjacent properties. Based on the architectural drawings, we believe this test has not been met. Infrastructure inadequacy. The stormwater system on the Rothesay is minimal, with only 2 drains currently serving the area. Flooding already occurs in many low-lying yards. The existing sewer system supports just 15 homes. This development would significantly increase that load. With a subdivision of 10+ units also proposed off Rothesay, our infrastructure concerns are compounded. Rothesay Avenue is a narrow cul-de-sac road serving 15 doors with a minimal space for street parking. It also provides access to the public beach, which further strains the parking situation. The OCP in section 7.4.2 indicates that new multi-unit development must be supported by existing servicing capacity, including water, sewer, and storm drainage. There is no mention in the application of infrastructure upgrades, nor any indication that capacity assessments have been completed. Questions for Council's consideration. 1, are OCP principles still guiding development decisions? And if not, what are the implications for future projects in other environmentally sensitive areas of Sidney? 2, why is the developer applying for overhead wiring rather than underground, which is the expected norm in new developments? 3, does this proposal truly reflect the spirit of the small-scale multi-housing unit housing initiative, given its luxury scale and design that may price units well above affordability thresholds? Hearsay has the 3rd floor penthouse has been pre-sold for over $3 million. Our request, we ask Council to ensure that this development respects the 20-meter shoreline buffer zone as outlined in the OCP, reduces its overall mass to better fit with the neighborhood character, includes comprehensive infrastructure upgrades, including underground utilities, incorporates integrated storm water management to protect the sensitive shoreline. In closing, we ask Council to consider whether this proposal genuinely reflects the intent and spirit of Sidney's official community plan. Thank you on behalf of concerned residents of Rothesay.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to speak to that prior to having the next speaker come forward. Thank you for coming forward this evening. Mr. Edwards, our Chief Administrative Officer, and myself did meet with 3 Rothesay residents for approximately an hour, listening to many of the concerns that you brought forward today. I'll try to summarize fairly quickly, or fairly briefly, as it's not an item on the agenda this evening, some of the discussion from that meeting. The first that I think is important, given and I appreciate members of the area coming and attending this evening's meeting, that the town of Sidney, through its processes, has 2 types of developments. They have development, what's referred to as development major permit applications, and development permit minor applications. And this is not a change. This is the way it has been for a lengthy period of time, as it is in other municipalities. And the subdivision of a residential lot is not a development permit major, is a development permit minor, so it doesn't, the application does not come forward to council. Having said that, our zoning bylaw, which was amended after we updated the official community plan approximately 2 years ago, does guide the development or redevelopments of properties. As I think is understood, as the speaker did mention at the beginning of the remarks, the province imposed on municipalities such as Sidney that single-family lots of a certain size, in fact 2 different sizes, could have either 3 or 4 residential units on the property. And this particular property is permitted to have 4 residential 4 residences. So we were required by the province, the municipality was required by the province to amend our zoning bylaw such that that density could be provided on those particular properties. It doesn't mean every single family lot is eligible to have those properties. In fact, there are requirements within the zoning bylaw. Reference was made to height, was made to massing. There will, in the zoning bylaw, there will also be parameters with regards to setbacks and others. And so with our OCP and our zoning bylaw, they are the guide for the staff that consider the subdivision proposal and approve the subdivision proposal. It doesn't mean because of the provincial legislation that our zoning bylaw or that our OCP is dismissed. It means we still want to abide by those. But the provincial government said that you must allow 3 stories. And there was other parameters. So I appreciate council members have spoken at the time that we're required to make the amendments to our zoning bylaw of our concerns with the approach that the province took to impose this on municipalities. But this is the new reality, if you will. And so there have been questions, I heard some questions arise with regards to infrastructure. I can tell you that staff across departments, whether it's engineering, whether it's development services, whether it's emergency, fire and protective services, would not allow this development to occur if the necessary infrastructure was not in place, either to service the property or to provide appropriate emergency services. So if you do have specific questions in terms of it being appropriate to something within our zoning bylaw or OCP, I would ask that you direct those specific questions you can send them to admin@sydney.ca, and it will be directed to the appropriate staff member to respond. So we appreciate your interest. I'm now speaking on behalf of council and the concern that you have within your residents, but that is fairly briefly and much less time than the hour that we spent with 3 of the residents in response to the remarks made this evening. I'll now call, and we'll extend public participation period as necessary to listen to all speakers this evening. I would ask for a call for a second time for speakers to come forward, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors.
Good evening.
I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
And your name, sir, just to...
Oh, yes. My name is Anthony Knight, and I'm a resident at 2516 Rothesay Avenue. And I come to you following a letter that we sent and hand-delivered on the 28th of March regarding our concerns of the development on Rothesay. I would like to thank you, the Mayor, and you, Liam Edwards, for kindly seeing us on the 3rd of April and spending an hour with us helping to clarify our concerns, and also for kindly providing us a copy of the government's toolkit for the provincial actions affecting this development. We now understand how and why the town of Sidney is limited in providing input into this and similar developments. However, we would appreciate more inclusivity during the planning and development process. We have no idea as to what is planned nor what is expected on this site. The only information came from a passerby who claimed that he had purchased the penthouse unit of this new complex and that he was moving in in August 2025. He kindly emailed me a site plan the next day. That is it, 1 page. That is all we know as to what is about to happen on our street. I might add that the house is partially demolished and has become an industrial-like storage site. We would really appreciate it if our town planning department keep us better informed and provide the public, particularly our neighborhood, with what is happening and more information about the site development as it is both planned and progresses. For example, simply marking the footprint and height of the structure so that the neighbors can begin to adjust to the new structure and perhaps begin to plant landscaping that might serve to mitigate the impact of their property. We love this town and we love all that you're doing for it, and the best thing we ever did was to move here 8 years ago. I thank you again for your time and consideration.
Thank you for coming forward this evening. I'll turn to the next speaker who wishes to come forward. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Catherine Laird, and I'm with the Toastmasters Group. My address is 1821 San Juan Avenue in Saanich, British Columbia. I'm here to speak on item 13D. I've been a Toastmaster for over 12 years. I've been involved in our annual conference education planning. Our first one that I was involved in was 2015 at Harbour Towers here in Victoria, and 2016 at Tinamara in Parksville, 2017 also at the Delta Ocean Point in Victoria, and I was the conference chair in 2020 for the Coast Bastion in Nanaimo. And this is our first conference since COVID that we are holding here at Mary Winspear in Sidney by the Sea. So I was looking for council support for our application to serve alcohol at the Beacon Park. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have regarding the application.
Thank you for coming forward. I'm sorry, I did get your first name, Catherine. Your last name?
Laird, L-A-I-R-D.
Thank you, Ms. Laird, for attending this evening. We don't normally do this, but as your item is later on the agenda, and when it does come up on the agenda, council wouldn't be asking you questions at that time.
Okay.
And so I appreciate that a member of council, I do have one question, and a member of council might have a question. We ask that you try to answer the question as directly. We appreciate the advocacy that you've done so far. So I would ask council for a motion to invite the individual to take questions from council.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? That appears. My question is you, the application indicates that if you were to serve alcohol, there would be a requirement for fencing of some sort, and so that would be closing off a section of the park, of a public park. Would it be if the part of the application requesting to serve alcohol was denied by council, would you still be sectioning off a portion of the park for what in essence could be considered a private event?
I don't see that to be necessary. I'm just, that would just be following the rules of the liquor board if they required fencing. So it's, and I'm not sure that they would, but I haven't approached them yet.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Garnett?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Laird. The event from 3 to 10:30 was set up and takedown, so was just curious as to when it would actually start and finish and when you would stop selling alcohol.
I plan to start at approximately 5 o'clock for the reception and end at 10, and then the 10:30 till 10:30 just for cleanup.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Rintoul?
Thank you. Thanks for coming forward this evening. And just to clarify, the staff report indicates that during that period that you're hosting what's described as a reception, that you'll be serving light snacks. But I take it it's through dinner and the evening, so it's perhaps more fulsome than that?
No, it's just a reception, so I don't expect people to stay for the whole event. Just to come in, meet and greet, very casual.
So sort of a drop-in, come-and-go affair? and you're anticipating, it notes in the report, approximately 100 attendees.
Yes.
How many delegates in total would you have at the event?
We have currently we have 120 registered with our committee. The committee is about 15 to 20 people, but we can have up to 300. But currently we're still trying to get that oomph after COVID. So.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for coming forward. I'll call again. Please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. It's nice to see you. Barbara Follett, 2005 Sunfield Crescent. Switch gears here a little bit. 13A, the flag. And I appreciate that staff have gone out to look at the business community to see where the feedback and what kind of impact our actions in regards to should we fly an American flag for our American visitors that come here to Sydney. And I think it's much more than business, it's much more than politics. It's about the human beings, it's the humanity of this whole thing. And when this period that we're in right now and for the next 4 years is over, people are going to remember how we acted. And I think we need to be good neighbors, good friends, fly that American flag for our visitors. If the tables were turned, how would we feel? And I think we need to stand up and be responsible and be hearty. Feel the heart in this whole thing. And I realize that's sort of mushy and all of this thing, but you know, we're so caught up in the politics of everything right now, and I don't want us to lose that humanity. So let us fly that flag, let us reach that hand across and say that we're good, we'll get through this. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward this evening. I'll call for a third time, which means we can't have more than one speaker after the third call. Good evening.
Dennis Jean and I live in Sydney. I'm speaking to the same issue. I unfortunately have a different perspective. I was actually going to raise this at council at one point over the spring, so I'm glad that staff brought this forward right now. I think it needs to be resounding no regarding the flag. I think that we are going through an experience which we never anticipated. We never thought we would face the challenges that we're facing. The President of the United States has released a slew of policies which are intended to weaken our economy. He shattered a 60-year-old relationship of security and trade. He has jettisoned the international trade and political relationship that has guided the world since 1945 and which was created by the Americans, and they benefited greatly. He suggested we become the 51st state, and this would be totally rejected by most Canadians. As a country, we are facing an existential threat. The SBIA has suggested that the American flag continue to be flown as a welcome gesture to Americans who wish to visit and support our businesses. And I share with Barbara Fell the view she expressed. We need to welcome them. They are our neighbors, and we need to be kind and polite. But I don't think flying the American flag is required to have that kind of relationship. And it may send a message to some of our American visitors that everything is the same, no change, which is drastically not the case. So I strongly urge that no American flags be flown from municipal property. I would also suggest that the Sister City float not be put in storage for the next 4 years, the Sister City float with Anacortes. I know we have got good relationships with many Americans, and many Americans, when I've told friends going to the States, are apologize for what the government is doing, but nevertheless, it's a policy of the U.S. government. I would recommend that the Sister City float be put in storage, at least until the Trump period is over, and then we can go back to see how the relationship moves forward as we go forward. Right now, it's a poisoned relationship, and I just feel really very strongly that we should take some actions to demonstrate how we feel about that. I also wonder whether the town has put and would be putting in place some policies or thoughts about acquisition, whether it's services or goods from the Americans, from our American companies, and whether, I know that a couple of municipalities have put out policies or frameworks. That's something that you might want to consider as well. Thank you for hearing my comments.
Thank you. Just a little note that I think you may be aware of, Mr. Gentleman, is that we are discussing whether or not to fly the U.S. flag in 2 locations on town property, but it's not our purview. Sister Cities is a independent organization. It's their
Okay.
decision with regards to the float.
All right, fine, I understand. It just presents a different image than a perspective. Thank you.
Thank you again for coming forward. Are there any last speakers this evening? Thank you all who came forward, and I will close public participation, and we'll move on to the next items on our agenda. I will pause for a moment if certain people would like to leave at this juncture. Okay, next on our agenda is a presentation from the Peninsula Celebrations Society, and welcome to Patricia Stevens, the board president, making the presentation this evening.
Thank you, Mayor Council.
Oh, yeah, we got a live mic now?
There we go.
Okay.
Thank you for having me tonight. I'm going to start with a presentation, give you an idea of what we're about. It's set to run automatically. Oh, sorry. So just, yeah, just every 2 seconds. Oh, so there's no. I don't know if it'll work, but we'll try this if it doesn't. Okay.
Just a friendly note that our presentations are 10 minutes, and we'd invite you to perhaps take any questions that council members may have after that, which is additional time after that. But
Okay, thank you. So you see here on the screen the events that we have. We run 15 through the year, starting in January with the Polar Bear Swim. And go ahead. This is an overview of Summer Sounds. That's our 8-series summer program. It brings in top quality musicians and draws between 1,800 and 2,500 people. Next. Polar Bear Swim. People having fun, and our volunteers. Go ahead. Easter egg hunt, which is coming up on April the 20th, held at Dominion Brook Park. And you can see the kids lined up ready to go. We have other things than just searching for chocolate. There's lots of entertainment for the kids and family. Canada Day Parade, popular event. And following that, we move to Family Fun Fair in Iroquois Park. And again, we get about 2,500 people. It's a big event for the kids. Summer Sounds, the 8 series. And then we're into Treat Street, Halloween. And that's shared with BIA, we're partners. And over to Sparkles Parade. And I'm not sure where it started, but we have this giant pig. And Summer Sound's motto, if you like the gig, feed the pig. So for some more non-visual information, we're 100% volunteer run. We have 35 paid members and about another 40 who help out on various things. We have a board of 11 people, each of whom carries responsibility for one of those events or a key area such as promotions and sponsorship. Our funding is solely from grants, donations, and sponsorships, and we're a line item on your budget. Our events are family-oriented, they're complementary, and that's a key criteria for us, as we want everybody to be able to attend our events. Price should not be a barrier. A sampling of our Summer Sounds attendees shows we draw 49% from Sidney. That's 50% from elsewhere, 24% from Victoria, 26% surrounding areas, and a few visitors thrown in from around the world. This is great for the town of Sidney, bringing in new visitors, providing an economic lift, and showcasing our beautiful town. Our budget currently runs at $64K. We estimate volunteer time at $40K, and that's based on $20 an hour, and is likely underestimated. I feel like I've spent most of the month on PCS business. We hold a $25K contingency, and that's due to timing issues on when funds are received, and partly for rainy day funds. We don't know that we're always going to get the grants. We don't know that we're going to get donations. So if we had a Summer Sounds rain out, we still have to pay the band, the sound, other expenses, and we lose the donations. Because sponsorships and donations are the majority of our budget, we've set up a sponsorship committee, and I've circulated the brochure that we're using. Shows you on the back who our key sponsors are. Although we lost one of our marquee sponsors this year, we brought in new sponsors. And first-time sponsors in this past year include the Peninsula News Review, who provide a weekly ad for us and something that's helped raise our profile. Saanich Peninsula Community Foundation is new to us and have given us $7,000. Sidney Pier Hotel, Victoria Airport, Van Isle Marina, and Coast Capital are all new this year. The board continues to focus on working smarter. We've reviewed all our events, our budget, and streamlined where possible. We've added technology where we can. And we do need to increase and find sustainable revenue streams, which is why we're doing the sponsorship focus. We're currently $15K short in meeting our budget and count on donations to fill that gap. And Summer Sounds is our main generator of donations. But we're going to be trialing a soft approach to encouraging people to donate at our other events. So our biggest challenge is ensuring that sustainable revenue stream that supports quality family-oriented events. And recruitment. Many of our volunteers are aging. Many of them don't have the stamina they did 15 years ago. So we've added a school liaison director to help with finding younger volunteers, but we could use other avenues to draw in young adults. And lastly, we started a new, small but important event last year, and that's a barbecue thank you to our Public Works and Parks folks. They're very helpful for us in road closures, parades, event setup. That event is held in September, and we'd like to invite you to join us. On behalf of a small group of committed volunteers in support of the town of Sidney, thank you for your attention. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Patricia. I'll turn to colleagues if there are any questions. I just want to take a moment to thank your mighty volunteer team. I can remember seeing the tent you had at Treat Street, and
Yes.
You were bulging, I think, with 15 or 17 volunteers. And it's just wonderful to see that level of spirit, community spirit, in your group. And thank you for continuing to host these events. The number of events that Celebration has put on has expanded over time to include things like Treat Street and so on. So thank you so much, and thank you for acknowledging the work of town staff that help in setup and other ways for the events in our town.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so there are approvals for the events coming under item 13C later on the agenda, which won't be too long. We're now turning to item 5A, which is bylaw number 2285, water utility rates and charges, amendment number 4. We have considered this at a previous meeting and given first, second, and third reading, and we do have a recommendation. Councillor Rintoul.
I'll move adoption of the bylaw.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That carries, thank you. Next, under 5B is bylaw number 2286, sewer service charges, amendment number 23. Again, we've discussed at a previous meeting, given the 3 readings to the bylaw, and we have a recommendation.
I'll
Councillor
move that sewer service charges amendment number 23 be adopted. Bylaw be adopted.
And second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That carries unanimous. And the third is bylaw number 2287, collection and disposal of refuse, amendment number 1. Again, considered at a previous meeting and a recommendation. Councillor Garnett.
I'll move that bylaw number 2287, collection and disposal of refuse, amendment number 1, be adopted.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion carries as well. Thank you. We have no development permit or development variance permit applications on tonight's agenda. We're turning, and I would seek a mover that the minutes of our regular council meeting of March 24th be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion carries. Next on the agenda is number 10, the mayor's report. I have 3 things. The first is the CRD board highlights. They are from the March 12th CRD board meeting. I don't normally expand on items. There are great links within the report for more information for members of council, for members of the public who have an interest. And so we're receiving those by virtue of them being on our agenda this evening. We don't require a motion, but I'll look to colleagues if there are any questions or comments. Not seeing any. 10B is I have the following motion to make regarding rescheduling our council meeting, rescheduling a council meeting, and I so move that due to the federal election on Monday, April 28th, the regular council meeting Monday on Monday, April 28th, be rescheduled to Tuesday, April 29th.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry, I'm seconding you, I beg your pardon.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion carries. And actually, I'm going to hold off on the third item I was going to speak to. We're going to turn to council reports, and I'll turn to Councillor Garnett for 2 verbal updates, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start with the Shaw Centre for the Salish Sea. Attended the latest board meeting on March 25th. Visitors to the centre from June 1st of 2024 to March 21st of 2025, just a little bit below 64,000. They had a very successful spring break. The 16 days, the centre welcomed over 8,000 visitors, with the high of Sunday, March 23rd being 824. So incredibly busy, and I'm sure they're enjoying a bit of a rest at this point in time. The net income for the first 8 months with the Town of Sidney operational grant funding and other contributed revenue is $78,000, and this is compared to the plan of $1,000. So to date, they're having great success. And they were successful in a federal grant application for $102,000 from the Enabling Accessibility Fund for their wheelchair lift replacement. And I just want to highlight this briefly, and a shout out and a thank you to staff. When they were bringing this forward at the meeting, the board meeting, we had been successful at the Changing Places washroom and receiving grant funding from this source. And I mentioned to the executive director, and she said she wasn't aware of it. So I contacted Ms. Clary, and I'll put her name out there, and she gave me the contact information, which I then shared with them. And so they're very appreciative, and it just shows a ability to collaborate throughout the municipality and throughout staff, and how liaison roles can be important in helping our organizations. The Wild Allies Pollinators and Native Plants exhibit opened to the public on March 15th and has been well attended with very positive feedback. And of course, there's the little garden outside, which I visit weekly to watch the flowers come to life, and I can't wait to see all the little creatures. As far as capital investment, there's been 3. They're relatively small. One was not planned for and had to happen, and the other 2. The Anchor real-time water quality monitoring system is now installed with key staff trained on monitoring, calibration, and maintenance procedures. The emergency power source, which I spoke to in a previous meeting, has had orientation sessions completed by staff, and they have a new computer for the Ocean's Heartbeat Gallery, which is now in place. And I want to also highlight the animal health, which is a critical component of the centre. 5 members of the animal care team are taking various modules of the Aquarium Vet Equeris course, and 80% of that is funded through grants, 20% by the facility, and it's an excellent source of education for the staff who have to look after so many various creatures. And once a week, they actually meet as a team at every habitat to make note of new or ongoing concerns with the animals. So just to let people know that this is actually a very important, it's in their strategic plan and goals, and they're really taking it highly and carrying through really well with it. And that's it for that report, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor, for the positive updates. I'll turn to colleagues if there's any questions or comments. Thank you again. Please continue.
Okay, SBIA, attended the latest board meeting February 26th. Approximately $9,000 in Sidney gift cards were redeemed in January, and that is the highest yet to date. So I'm not sure if that has to do with what's going on in the world events, but it's great for our local businesses. The Sidney Perks Pass, which I mentioned previously for local employees, all 500 were claimed in less than 3 weeks. So it would be interesting to hear at the end of a year how well this has gone, but there definitely was a demand for it. The MRDT, or hotel tax, was given support by both Sidney Council and the CRD, was subsequently reviewed and approved by Destination BC, and now is with the Ministry of Finance waiting for final approval. The Employment Expo was held March 12th at the Mary Winspear Centre. There were fewer employers this year. However, this was apparently the best turnout yet and had the highest attendance to date, with many employers actually reporting hirings on site. So it still is a beneficial thing for our community. The boat show will be held May 1st to 4th. For those who want to attend that, you can plan for that. And then I attended the AGM on March 26th. I just want to bring a couple of highlights there. One member of the board has stepped down, but the other 8 members are continuing in place. And this will provide a level of continuity as they help local businesses navigate any tariff issues they might have. The net income for the year was $23,000. So all positive there. They've decided to make a move to have more of a digital presence. They still will have their hard paper copies, but this is a better way to reach more and more people. As far as the financial statements go, I just wanted to highlight one thing for anybody that might happen to look at it. The visitor center showed a shortfall of about $12,000, and you'll note when you look in the numbers that there is an increase to wages and benefits, and this is because of a direct result of a work-safe requirement, that there be an employee in the building 7 days a week with the volunteers. There's been some safety concerns in the past, and so this is something that they have to go going forward, have to recognize. And a couple of last highlights. The mayor's probably going to talk about this, but BC Business has named Sidney the #1 most economically resilient city in BC for 2025. This is based on data collected up to the end of September of 2024 and is a reliable snapshot of how cities are positioned moving into 2025. And finally, I'll want to spread my congratulations to the Days Inn for receiving the President's Award for 2024. This is in recognition of their commitment to hospitality excellence. And that's it for me, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Garnett. Any questions or comments? Thank you again for the very positive update. And we are next turning to committee reports. We have the minutes from our committee of the whole meeting of April 7th. We're receiving those by virtue of them being on the agenda. I'll turn to colleagues. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Not seeing any. Councillor Novick has the acting mayor role for the month of April and chaired that committee of the whole meeting last week. In his absence this evening, we would normally turn to the acting mayor for May, which is Councillor Duncan. Councillor, sorry to put you on the spot, but if you could take us through the 4 recommendations, please.
All right. Committee recommends, and I so move, that owners and tenants in occupation of property within 75 meters, 246 feet, of 9646 5th Street be notified regarding development variance application number DV100371 to permit a heat pump within the exterior side yard of the property, and that any written correspondence received be forwarded to council at the time of consideration of approval of the variance.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. Please continue.
All right, recommendation number 2, committee recommends, and I so move, that owners and tenants in occupation of property within 75 meters, 246 feet, of 2499 Rothesay Avenue be notified regarding development variance application number DV100370 to reduce the rear setback of an existing single-family dwelling and to allow for an existing accessory building to be sited in a front yard, and that any written correspondence received be forwarded to council at the time of consideration of approval of the variance.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I think just
Please go ahead.
briefly, just because we heard from residents of Rothesay earlier, that this particular recommendation is to simply grandfather in an existing property so that it's in compliance with updated setbacks per the updated OCP and permitting process. So this will not create a new building or change a building that is currently there. It's simply to legalize one that's currently there.
Thank you, Councillor. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. And the third?
Committee recommends, and I so move, that the following 2025 grant and aid applications be approved. 1, the Sidney Guide and Scout Hall Society for $1,000, Parkland Parents Association for $750, Stelly's Secondary School Parents Dry Grad for $750, 676 Kitty Hawk Sponsoring Committee Society for $1,000, Navy League of Canada for $1,000, Sidney Lawn Bowling for $1,000, Sidney Arts and Media Society for $2,000, Cycling Without Age Society for $1,500, Friends of St. Andrews for $4,500, Saanich Peninsula Pipe Band for $1,000, and the Need to Suicide Prevention Education and Support Hotline for $3,500, Compost Education Center for $500, for a total of $18,500.
Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. And the fourth?
That the 2025 grant and aid applications from Island Rhythmic Gymnastics, Peninsula Lacrosse Association, Sidney North Saanich Yacht Club, Saanich Peninsula Piranhas Swim Club, Capital Region Food and Agriculture Initiatives, Fed Urban Agricultural Society, Royal Canadian Legion Saanich Peninsula Branch Number 37, and Canadian Association of Retired Persons be denied.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carries unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Duncan. We're next turning to staff reports, and under 13A, we have flying American flags seasonally on municipal property. We have a report from our Manager of Communications, Ms. Judson. Did you wish to introduce Ms. Judson? Sure, thank you.
So each year from May to October, the town flies a group of flags along Beacon Wharf and at Seaport Park. An American flag is included alongside a Canadian flag, a Town of Sidney flag, and others as a gesture to welcome U.S. visitors. Over the past month, the town's received letters from several members of the public asking that the municipality opt not to fly the American flag this summer in those displays due to threats from the U.S. President to annex Canada. The Sidney BIA wrote the town letting us know that they've heard from local businesses who hope that the municipality continues to include the American flag in these displays, as U.S. visitors play an important role in supporting the local economy. And we look to Council for guidance on this sensitive issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Before going to a recommendation, I'll ask colleagues if there are any questions regarding the report. Councillor Garnett.
Thank you, Mayor. Because it was in one of the letters and it was something that was spoken about at the time, is it a possibility that we could actually fly our Canadian flags on Flag Day? Is that something that we have the ability to do, or would that be problematic?
So you were thinking on Flag Day that we would put them up along Beacon Wharf?
February, I think it's February 15th, yeah.
When I asked why we use that time frame, it was just because the flags don't fare well if they're exposed to long periods to our winter weather. So
Right.
I think if it was at the direction of Council, that staff could put flags there for
Yeah,
Flag
I wouldn't
Day.
be thinking about a long-term thing, just recognizing the day. I think there were quite a few people that spoke to that, and I don't think it's an unreasonable request from our public.
I think I'd want to check in with staff on that. I understand that many of the flagpoles aren't your conventional flagpole where you have a halyard to raise and lower the flags, but rather they're fixed in place, and so it's actually a little more effort to fly flags. So.
Okay, yeah, no, just if it's a possibility, if something staff can maybe look into. If it's too much to do, that's fine. But I just think something we might explore. That's all.
My understanding is that it's not as simple as just putting a flag on a halyard and raising it for many of our flagpoles. So
Yeah.
it's a matter of whether or not council would want staff to spend upwards of half a day or so to raise flags.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Colleagues, I would like to move the following make the following recommendation, and I move that the town does not fly the U.S. flag at Beacon Wharf and Seaport Park this summer season. I would look for a seconder.
One second.
Second. My motivation, Donald Trump wants the sovereign country of Canada to become the 51st state of the United States. He is using trade tariffs in part to try and destabilize our economy and our country. He has heard loud and clear from Canadians that we disagree with his tariffs and that we categorically do not want to become the 51st U.S. state. I'm opposed to flying the U.S. flag on town property while Donald Trump is being hostile towards Canada. That is the statement we are making by not flying the U.S. flag. I appreciate the BIA is advocating that we fly the American flag to welcome American visitors. This morning I had a meeting at the provincial legislature and walked down from the CRD building and went past the Visitor Info Center in the Inner Harbor. And before I got down to I was at the top of Government Street before you start to go down towards the Inner Harbor. And from there you could see a flag approximately 10 feet high and approximately 15 feet across, the largest Canadian flag I've ever seen. I know we have a very large one at our CSB building, but this one was larger. And it was hanging very prominent. And I walked past the Visitor Info Center not thinking that there was actually 3 flagpoles there. And when I walked past it, I turned around and I noticed that there was a Canadian flag, a BC flag, and a Sydney Victoria flag flying there. And having seen the Canadian flag and feeling proud seeing that large flag on the legislative buildings, I turned back and said, while I was thinking about tonight's agenda, and I was thinking that I might go either way on this in terms of the correspondence we received, in terms of what we might hear from folks, I felt it would have looked out of place. It would have looked to me wrong to have the American flag over that Visitor Information Center. For me, it's about making the statement that I've just described. So I appreciate the BIA is advocating that, but people welcome people. And I welcome U.S. citizens to visit our town and enjoy all we have to offer, and I'm confident others in Sydney, businesses and residents and nonprofit organizations, will also welcome. I was invited to make opening remarks to a Lions district conference, the Sydney Lions Club, their district conference held at the Mary Winspear Centre. There was over 200 delegates there, and many of them, the district actually is through parts of Vancouver Island, the Lower Mainland, and into Washington State. And there was many representatives there from Lions clubs in Washington State, and they were warmly welcomed. I welcomed them when I met them before the conference actually started, and I think that's what we'll continue to do as Sydney residents. I think we'll continue to do as Canadians. But under the current circumstances of Donald Trump's intentions, I think it's an important statement that we make at this time. I'll leave my remarks there and turn to the seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll support the motion, and I certainly appreciate the statements from Mrs. Fallett, who spoke earlier before council from the public. I concur, as I'm sure my colleagues do, that we want everyone to receive a warm welcome here in our community. And certainly we are all supportive of our local business community, but there's a strong sensitivity. I share it with respect to the position the federal government has taken in the United States towards our country. It's created some unwelcome animosity, and we certainly weren't the catalyst for this situation. I don't feel like the town's hospitality will at all be questioned. The staff report does note that we will continue to fly our sister cities' flags, including Anacortes and Washington State. I think that sends an equally warm message to both residents and visitors in terms of the town's approach to welcoming tourists in our community. And I'm hopeful, frankly, for those that may be concerned through this, that our community continues to see, above average visitors from throughout Canada to Sidney in this season. So I'm quite content to see us on this temporary basis to support the motion that's before us, and hope for better days when it can return to where we'd like to all see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. I will very strenuously, with all of the power in my single hand, vote against this motion. I agree with both the people who spoke from the public before. This is a matter far greater than politics. Politically, Canada and the US have been here before on tariffs. In the late 80s and 90s, there was a huge wave of Canadian nationalism because it was leading up into the NAFTA agreements, and Canada was having a huge spat with the US over softwood lumber. Obviously, we lost in many ways at that time. But in terms of tariffs, we've been here before. Donald Trump does it in a different way. I've read The Art of the Deal. It was a bestseller. I'm sure many other people have read it. And anyone who's read that book would see that the way he's doing his business is exactly the way he always has. Nothing about the way he's doing it and changing his mind and ratcheting people back and forth and deliberately provoking people and trying to make them screw up. That's how he shakes hands. He pulls people off balance. This is just Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is not the American people. Donald Trump is doing a lot of stuff that I would never have predicted from reading The Art of the Deal. He was actually portrayed himself, at least, maybe he was a different person, but is quite an honorable person who admired women. He spoke about how much he admired his wife and her business sense. He was the first man to hire a female architect to design a building in New York City. For one thing, he has hired equal numbers of women to his cabinet, regardless of how qualified we may find those individuals. There is nothing that would have led one to believe that he would enact the policies and allow them to enact policies that would hurt the citizens of the American people the way they are. The Rainbow Railroad, which helps refugees of the LGBTQI community flee countries where they're being persecuted, usually gets maybe 25 applications Canada a month, something like that. The day Donald Trump was elected, we got 1,500 from the United States. They're terrified. I know people who've personally had their passports now invalidated because their genders don't match the one they were born with. They can no longer go back to their home. They're stuck here, they're stuck overseas, wherever they are, or they're terrified they can't leave the United States and they might end up being persecuted. There are entire states where women have lost health care, maternal health care. They haven't just lost the ability to have an abortion, they've also been denied being able to have birth control. If they get pregnant and it's going to kill them, they have no choice but to die. As somebody who might have bled to death with my first pregnancy or died of preeclampsia with my second, that feels very personal to me, especially since it could have been me. My grandmother was an American citizen. People were very happy to fly giant Ukrainian flags earlier, when I would say the vast majority of the people flying them maybe have no idea about the political situation in Ukraine and Russia. They certainly wouldn't know about the background political situation between Russia and NATO. They may have never even met an actual Ukrainian, but they were happy to fly those flags to support the Ukrainian people. I would be horrified if we did not fly the American flags to support our American neighbors, knowing that assuredly everybody here knows an American, and almost everybody here will probably know an American who is a woman, who may now live in a state where she will be denied health care. And since we're all being forced to fly a lot of pride flags, which have been very controversial, they've been defaced all over the peninsula and Victoria. Many of us have received, we feel fearful because of the way that's changed the political situation in Canada as well. If we're going to fly those flags and pretend we're being brave, I think we should fly the American flag too. If we think Donald Trump is this bad, let's say he's actually being this bad to his own citizens. Tariffs, who cares? We've been here before with NAFTA. We'll figure it out politically. But the other stuff, that's stuff that can't be taken back. That's real lives. I don't care about making a statement. I care about supporting my family and neighbors. Thank you.
Councillor Garnett.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, colleagues, for your passionate discussion on this topic and for both speakers. And I think that speaks to the fact that it's a divided issue. We have two people speaking on it, and they both have different perspectives. I have a somewhat unique perspective in that my grandfather was one of the 4,000 people that designed a flag for our, didn't end up being his design, but there's a family history attached to this. I am concerned, and we can say that we can welcome Americans and show that in the way with our attitudes. But I think what's lost in the discussion is that as much as we are showing a pride in our flag and our country right now, Americans are very, very, very prideful of their flag. So I think it will be noticed if it's not there. I honestly do. And I agree with the SBIA, and a lot of our businesses, they survive based on American tourist dollars. And it could have an impact. It may not, but it could have. And we have many people in our community who have American family, or people that might have come to Canada were originally Americans. That would be an insult to them, I believe, and I would believe to the people that come to visit here. Our First Nations have a connection just across the border in Washington because of the way the border was drawn. They have family there, and maybe they're not wrapped in an American flag, but maybe there's a symbolism there that matters to them, and we have to be cognizant of that. I don't want to make an emotional decision. And if you had asked me 3 weeks ago, I would have been fully supportive of this motion. But I've had time to digest. I've had time to think about it. And it can't be about emotion. Because I feel as a Canadian, that's what sets us apart, is that we don't go to those extremes of taking flags down. We're more inviting and accepting of people regardless of what their government's doing in whatever country that is around the world. And had this been a flag with the President Trump's picture on it, I would be in full agreement. But we're talking about one man and a handful of people in his cabinet, or as I call them, the minions. And they're going along with their whatever. I don't even know if they know what the path is. It changes every 5 minutes. But for us to make a decision based on what a handful of people are doing and are saying about our country, when I'm sure the vast majority of the Americans don't even know what's happening. And I've heard that anecdotally from people. They come back and say they don't know. They don't know what their president is doing to Canada. So I think it's a bit of a reach for us to go here when the people that are coming to visit here don't even know that we're angry about it. And so although I support what our federal government and provincial government is doing, I think for me this goes a little bit too far for our level of government. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Council, as we're aware, a split vote defeats the motion on the floor. We've done this before when we've had what might be considered a larger issue or a more important issue to council that has been divisive, to refer it to a council meeting where we have either a majority or a higher majority or full council. I can go ahead and call a question and we can do that. I would consider after that to bring it back when we have a full council for reconsideration. But I have a question through to staff first, and that is, what date do we typically put the flags up at the locations identified in the report?
I spoke with staff today and they said before May long weekend.
Before May long weekend. So our May long weekend is around the 21st, and so we will have a council meeting, a regular council meeting. We'll have a committee of the whole meeting first, but we'll have a council meeting before that time. So council, I won't move, but I'll turn to a colleague if they would like to refer this to a future council meeting, or if I don't see somebody come forward, I will call the vote.
I'll move that we refer this to a future council meeting.
Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll just suggest I don't think the passion behind this issue goes away, obviously, as we move it forward. And I think, as Councillor Garnett noted, we heard split opinions during public participation. Perhaps the point of view of council collectively will not be much different if we have this discussion at a later date. Having said that, you know, I concur that I think it's, given the level of public interest in this matter, the interest in the business community, that it's probably appropriate to have it with a higher attendance rate from council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Garnett? Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None are opposed. The motion carries. Thank you. We'll turn to item 13B under staff reports, tree removal request at 2357 Malaview Avenue. And I'll turn to our Director of Engineering, Ms. Clary, for an introduction, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you stated, this report is related to the tree removal request of 2 Leyland cypress trees located at 2357 Malaview Avenue. Leyland cypress trees are typically planted as hedges, and they're fast growing and have a short lifespan. The age of these trees is over 25 years. They are very visible on the 2000 aerial photos that the town has. As these reach their end of life, they are at risk of losing fairly large limbs with very little notice. So although these trees aren't deemed as an imminent hazard, staff are actually recommending the approval of the removal of them. The trees don't fit in within any of the permitted staff removal items in the existing tree removal or tree preservation bylaw. So if this is approved by council, we would bring back a bylaw amendment at a future time to allow staff to permit the removal if we are aware that the trees are reaching their end of life. So if they are approximately this size, or we can look back in aerial photos and determine when the trees were planted. And I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Clary. I'll turn to Councillor Garnett to begin.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to staff. So as the recommendation stating here, and the amendment you're proposing, that would still require replacement trees, correct?
That is correct.
And if we went the route where they were exempted, that would not require replacement trees?
That is correct.
Okay.
If they were exempted from our bylaw, they wouldn't need to get a tree removal permit to remove them.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll look for someone to move a recommendation. Councillor Garnett?
I'll move that the request to remove 2 Leyland cypress trees from the front yard of 2357 Malaview Avenue be approved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councillor?
Yeah, just because I'm normally the person that doesn't approve tree removals that often. Having gone by, I can see the concerns that the homeowner has and the neighbor, and having had discussions with the arborist, it makes sense in this case. These trees are that's not a great space for them to be in. They're becoming rather large, so I can see the concern about, given that this particular species is prone to large limb breakages. So, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. Returning to item 12D, which is a request. Sorry, that was 12B. We're on 12C now. Request. Sorry, 13. Why did I write 12 here? 13C, request for road closures and use of parks 2025, community events for the Peninsula Celebrations Society. I'll turn to Mr. Demare if you'd like to provide an introduction, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As brought forward earlier by Peninsula Celebration in their presentation, we've received their request for temporary road closures and use of parks for their 2025 community events. The events include the Sidney Days, the Summer Sounds Concert Series, Treat Street, Sidney Sparkles Parade, and the Polar Bear Swim. The report summarizes the requested road closures and the use of parks, and includes recommendations for approval with a number of conditions. I would just also maybe just point out in the report there is just a minor change in terms of the temporary road closures for the 2 parade events. It refers to a closure for marshalling of Resthaven Drive. The report currently refers from Sidney to Henry. That should read Beacon to Henry. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this one? Not seeing any. Look for someone to move the recommendation.
I move the recommendation that the Peninsula Celebrations Society's request for road closures and use of parks for their 2025 special events be approved, and that noise regulations that may restrict these events be waived. subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report dated April 14th, 2025.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'll just note in support of this, our appreciation again, as the mayor noted, to Peninsula Celebrations Society for being a real a spirit of positivity that brings the peninsula communities together. So our appreciation, no doubt, to you and your volunteer colleagues. Thank you.
I'll call a question. All in favor? Carries unanimously. Thank you. And 13D is a request for permit to serve alcohol at Beacon Park, the Toastmasters Conference. I'll turn back to Mr. Demare for an introduction, please.
Thank you. The town received a park use permit from the Toastmasters District 21 for a private event at a Beacon Park for Friday, May 23rd. As part of their event, they're requesting to be able to serve alcohol to the participants at the private event. Serving of alcohol for an event requires council approval, as well as a special occasion liquor license from the BC Control Board. So this report is bringing forward that request for council's consideration.
Thank you. Are there any questions before we go to a recommendation? Councillor Rintoul.
Thank you, Chair. Through the mayor to staff, I don't recollect a precedent of this nature, at least at this park, or am I mistaken? If I could ask staff if they recollect in recent history, special event licensing of this nature.
Through the Councillor Rintoul, the only one I believe that was events of much larger scale was the Dinner en Rouge. I believe they had alcohol served, so that would have gone through the same process. But in terms of a smaller scale private event, no, this is the first that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Garnett.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to staff, and just from the question that the mayor had asked about the fencing, do we generally, when we have, I mean, given that this hasn't happened that often, but as far as the fencing goes, do we have something in terms of like a damage deposit for if the fencing causes any damage to the grass?
Through to Councillor Garnett, typical with a parks use permit for Beacon Park, the applicant does provide a damage deposit, fencing or not.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'd look for someone to move a recommendation. Councillor Rintoul.
Yeah, thank you. I will move to deny Toastmasters District 21's request to serve alcohol at their private event proposed for Beacon Park on May 23rd, 2025.
We have it moved. Do we have it seconded?
I'll second for discussion.
Great. Alternative movers.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Certainly appreciative of any organizations or associations that look to bring their events to the town of Sidney. I'm pleased that the Mary Winspear Centre, attracts visitors, conventions, conferences of this nature. I think just given the time of year and the fact that we're seeing more use of our parks at that time of year in spring, early summer, that this type of event running for the hours that were indicated, I think probably 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Very, very prominent location in our community. That I have some reservations with respect to the precedent may set. Having heard that there had been a previous dinner function, as I recall, the intent behind that fundraiser for the Mary Winspear Centre was it was more of a sit-down dinner event as opposed to the type of reception that was described by the applicant on this occasion. Certainly the Mary Winspear Centre has outdoor space included within the purview of their liquor license. And I think I'm more comfortable seeing this event, if it were to proceed, be without this particular liquor license being issued. I'll pause there and certainly listen to my colleagues, but that's my point of view on this. Thank you.
Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thank you. I was on the fence about this, so I was looking around to see what somebody else would move. Because I thought, on the one hand, we have had beer gardens before, and functionally, they'll basically have to build a beer garden. However, the beer gardens that we have had have been for the Torque Masters event, believe it or not, in August, and they shut down all of the streets, and therefore they're public. You know, anyone can go to that beer garden who's going to that event, and they're on streets that are closed to traffic and have kind of become a townwide event, whereas this would be a private event setting up a beer garden in a very prominent park. And I do worry about that. I do worry about the Toastmasters having to control the people trying to go into their tent as well, or into their fenced area as well. And as Councillor Rintoul has said, the precedence that this would set. I think if this, you know, actually had been a public event hosted by Peninsula Celebrations who'd asked for that beer, it would feel a little different to me. It would still be, I think, a difficult area to do it, but having a private event there with a roped off area and liquor sales, when we know that there's the distillery and several licensed restaurants that have the capacity, if they're not serving all 100 people at the same time in a sit down event either, that again, and they're expecting people to come and go, that this feels like the kind of liquor service that could have been accommodated within one of the venues that's surrounding the area, or at the Merry Windspear itself. And so it seems like an unnecessary potential headache, both for the Toastmasters to manage and for the town to have to grapple with in maintaining that boundary with the general public who will want to be using that area.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Garnett?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, when I came in, I wasn't really one way or the other, but Councillor Rintoul has raised some good points. Yeah, it's a pretty prominent public park, and I mean, it's not a huge amount of people, but fencing off for that amount of people does take a fair bit of the park away from the general public, which is probably not a great idea. And I do wonder why they wouldn't use, since the thing is at Merry Windspear Centre, why they wouldn't use one of the rooms there with the ability to have an open drinking area outside. So yeah, I'm tending to support the motion on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll support the motion on the floor and support the comments of my colleagues. My major concern is the precedent, and it sounds like it'll be a fairly informal event. They talk about a tent, lawn chairs. I think members of the public who do go by one of our prominent parks like that will perhaps wonder what is going on in terms of being sectioned off for this type of use. Leave my comments there.
Mayor, may you turn your mic on, please?
I'm sorry, thank you. Sorry, we're on to 14A now under correspondence with regards to the item being accessible parking, public EV charging stations. We have a letter from the District of Central Salish dated April 1st and a recommendation. I would turn to colleagues if they would consider the recommendation.
I'll move that the resolution be endorsed.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Not seeing any discussion. It's fairly straightforward, and so I'll turn to call the question. All in favor? That motion carries unanimous. Thank you. And I'll now turn to Councillor Garnett, who requested raising item 15.1, the letter from Al Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank Ms. Henderson for her letter. I am in agreement with a lot of the comments in this letter, so with the Mayor's okay, I was looking to do a motion arising rather than talk about why I support the letter, and I could motivate on it if I get a seconder.
Sure, certainly. Please go ahead.
Okay. I'll move that Council direct staff to amend Sydney's parks and animal control bylaws to prohibit dogs from entering sport courts, and that the requisite signage be put in place at entries to these courts.
Sorry, can you read the first part of the recommendation, please?
I'll move that Council direct staff to amend Sydney Parks and Animal Control bylaws. Yeah, and you have the rest. To prohibit dogs from entering sports courts, and then having the requisite signage at the entry points to the courts.
Okay, before I look for a seconder, I'm going to make a comment and turn to staff or direct it as a question, and that is,
In instances like this, I mean, we could, this is coming to your council colleagues for the first time, to consider, is we're directing staff to do something, and we may be asking staff for the first time whether they have concerns or there are implications of doing this. As often is the case, a recommendation like this could ask for staff to bring a report back to amend the bylaw, and staff could present in a report what if they have any concerns or if how it would be implemented. So I would just ask that you perhaps consider, Councillor Garnett, if you want to amend the first part of the motion and request staff to bring back a report on what you're requesting.
Sure, I can agree to that.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Tomotovi.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I quite frequently see dogs in the two courts at Iroquois off leash, and I also see people using the facilities. And so I was thinking about it when I walked through the two courts. Staff can clean them upon request, but I mean, how clean do we really get it? And I guess it really struck home with me. One, it's not the intended use for these courts, but it really struck home with me because there is a small daycare in Sidney, approximately 8 to 10 children, and they're quite young, who go on these courts. And I was thinking about little kids falling hands down, hands in mouth, and the health concerns around that. And as an owner of 2 large breed dogs, my dogs are always on leash, and I walk them wherever. I would never go into a court, and it creates conflicts, and that shouldn't really be there, because these, after all, are facilities that people are meant for specific purposes, for sporting activities, and it doesn't take into consideration people might have allergies to dogs, and also there are people that are actually quite terrified. I have a neighbor's child who's terrified of dogs, so it would preempt people from using the court if there were dogs in there, and I don't think it's fair to the people in our community when these courts are actually meant for a specific purpose, and this is not it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion? Councillor Rintoul?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm content to support the motion to see the report come back from staff. I certainly, confer with the intent of this. I'm a little cautious that, when staff review this, that the perspective is on sport courts, as I think the intent is. I just look to perhaps the wider community, and I think of Panorama and their sport court, and there may be instances where service dogs, are on the courts for users of all abilities, and I know that's not the intent, obviously, with this, but that we're cognizant of that as Sidney continues to make its efforts to ensure that parks and play areas are open to the users of all abilities. So I'll leave my comments there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. Thank you for bringing it forward, Councillor. And turning now, you wish to raise one of the 2 letters regarding Allbay Road parking concerns under 15.8.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to respond to Ms. Gifford, to her letter that's in our package. And I was hoping to not have to raise that. She's quite often in attendance, and I was just going to have a chat with her, but she's not here. So I know she actually watches the meetings as well at some point in time. So just wanted her to be aware that this is something that I also realized after the motion was made that evening, and that I had a brief chat with staff, and that just so that she knows that when this item does come back to council, I'm cognizant of that portion that she's speaking to, east of Bowden. On Allbay, and that it would be something I would definitely want to bring to the discussion. Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. And if I might add that these 2 items of correspondence, knowing that staff are bringing a report back on Allbay Road, these items of correspondence would go to that agenda as well. So thank you for noting that. And no motion required there. That actually, we have no notices of motion this evening or motion to go on camera, so that does conclude our business on this evening's agenda. I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, staff.